So, as usual, it'd be good to spend some time for some meditation practice. Now, some particulars about how to engage in meditation practice I've covered in our last sessions. So to just again think about as a way to understand the need or the purpose of the meditation practice, if we were to consider our normal state of mind, where if we were to let our mind to go in every sort of following every distracting thought and sort of like really dispersed, where it's focusing on objects that cause what we call afflictions, afflictive state of minds, or what we call negative state of minds to arise, then that causes the consequence of that is then one starts to feel really like agitated and unsettled within oneself, within one's own mind. So thus, when we really contemplate and think about this this situation, it is really an important point to really consider for our well-being, particularly our mental well-being, that if we were not to change, if we didn't do anything to change our normal way of, didn't change to do something about containing our mind and not allowing it to be completely distracted, if we didn't do something to change that, then we would actually become victims of really constantly agitated, and it can lead to more and more mental sort of angst and complications.
단다 손은 또 셀 강아지 거야래. 라 세 자예도 되게 녀몬데 이게 셀라 강아지 거야. 이게 셀라 못돼. 셀라 강아지 거야래. 근데 다 셀라 못돼. 셀라 강아지 거야래. 다티 강아지 선택하는데. 네 강아지 와서부터 타는데. 선택도 못되지. 손은 제때 땅 그래나. 손도 들어가는
So this sort of the process of how we need to start to, how should we say, change this situation, like to go through some sort of positive transformation within oneself. The process would include really, first of all, acknowledging that if one allows one's mind to be completely dispersed and following all the distracting objects, which are objects that cause negative states of mind to arise, what we call the afflictive states of mind, then to that extent, if one were to allow that, and if we didn't do anything to change that, it will just cause so much more complications in my life, complications for myself, causing so much turmoil in my mind. So thus, once one has acknowledged that one should have a different approach. One should change one's way of one's state of mind or one's attitudes, then the next thing that one then reasonably would come up with, a reasonable sort of question one would come up with is there a method? Is there a means? Is it possible to change? Is there a method to change my way of thinking? And so this actually process of doing this internal sort of investigation and kind of like in the form of an internal dialogue, really checking within oneself, that in itself actually becomes a practice. That in itself will help the mind to actually settle down a bit. So indeed, whenever we're facing some sort of difficulty or challenges in one's life, it is reasonable to really assess the situation and try to understand the nature of the problem, and then a practical way of dealing with it is to, having understood the nature of the problem, to check whether there is a solution, whether there's a way, whether there's a method to overcome these problems or certain particular challenge it may be, or difficulties one is facing. Then if there is a way that one can, if there's a way to solve these problems, in other words, if there's a solution, then one can feel a bit more relaxed. One need not have to feel too anxious then, because there's it is a problem which is solvable, which there's means and ways to get rid of these problems. So thus one can one applies the method rather than being overwhelmed with anxiety. Then if, however, one finds that there is no immediate solution for the problem, whatever particular problem one is facing, then again then one resolves that then there's no point worrying about it. There's no point feeling anxious and worrying about it, because temporarily one would just have to, weather it out. One would have to face it, and so this is this way of thinking or attitude is really helpful.
강에 올만 적으면 좋아. 강아도 올만 적으면 소소 강에 올 적으면 좋아. 얘네도 산도기지 개좀 셔라 있는데 다 산대도 다 전에 또 그러나 어나 다 단단 안 되셔야 될다 다 타나 가는 데도 먼저 징하도 산잖아 로데 간대사 용은데 로도 소소지 가자 나보 맞아서나 뭐 가사에서 동원이 then Toban Ramraser, Yaman Ramrajin dinner, Cotil Legader, said the Madeshara, Zata, Manan Tore. Then Tongarella said the Shroyel Matonache. Tindiga, Casayeza Mato, said no city Nejana, no, Mibachil Nejana. Shasan did the Matichi, son to the Gana, then they come out Negataru, Shinra, and Tomote that goes and set in the Ibero. Says Royal upon Tony, Madea, the thing on the Mato there, said Jaja, no one knows it, then. Then no game, me passing a money, a game me pass, then said the lady up, said the lady. That need that so the God I give us and some the need to eat it.
So thus so in relation to what we would call problems or difficulties or challenges, these are bound to arise at different times in our life. We all have we all have the experience of all sort of difficulties and arising as some problems are solved and yet others arise. So this is how is part of our life, part of our nature. And so this, since it is a reality where we cannot completely avoid or escape or avoid from problems, then it is worthwhile to look into how best to deal with it. If we try to ignore problems or try not to acknowledge them, then it can reach a point where it becomes too overwhelming, and then it seems like that there's no hope. We cannot deal with it. Whereas, as mentioned earlier, if we look into the situation, the problem, and assess the problem properly, and if it's solvable, then no need to worry. If temporarily there's nothing to do, again, not need to worry. So that sort of attitude can be really helpful, as mentioned earlier. Now, in relation to the particular, now coming back to the main point about our state of mind. So when we come to a point where we can acknowledge to ourselves that indeed most of the inner turmoils that we experience are due to allowing our minds to be completely distracted, completely focused outwardly, in letting it go in every sort of direction that one's thoughts takes us. So then thus, as mentioned earlier, when it focuses, when the external objects that one focuses on are mostly essential objects, distracting essential objects that cause afflictions to rise, agitation to rise in the mind, then for as long as that situation remains, we will not be free from an agitated state of mind, because the conditions are always present. So thus, having thought whether there's a method or not, and looking into the situation, and when one understands specifically how the mind gets affected in that way, then one will be able to acknowledge that, one will be able to understand that if one were to reverse that situation, which means if when one were to choose a method of where one actually chooses to focus within rather than allowing the mind to be completely dispersed outwardly, to actually choose to focus within ourselves and thus then choose a particular object, what we call an inner object or a mental object, to particularly focus on. So when one chooses a particular appropriate object to focus, an inner object to focus on, and places one's object on a focus on it, then by the virtue of the mind being withdrawn from all the distracting external objects, the mind then will naturally start to settle down. The agitation and all the sort of anxieties and worries in our mind start to really actually subside. And so this is then what we call specifically the method of what we call the meditation method or technique, which we adopt.
단다 되게 가르쳐 나도 강아지래 강아 돈들래 돈들래 강아 센터 예 근데 로조 되네 나도 가지나 강아야 아래 강아래 그래 그 센터 맞아 코 돈들래 코 센터 이다 나 강아 돈들래 봐 강아세 타초 줘 봐 상견도 좀 되는 중은 다 봐지 로조도 그 타닝에네 강아 용거라 강아대 살라 만내 봐지 강아 돈들래 강아 센터 간 센터류 센터에는 센터제 센터면 소소서 센지자 가요 가가요 팬도 문데서 딜로조대야 야부페 내가 센제게 제라 로조 야보지야나 네 강아에 제대는 세 대병 내 태아서 때내 용산 대수 뭐지 되는 용거야. 레게 때는 강아 뭐지 용거야. 세 대인거 내 도와서 대수 로준 거는 뭐지 태용이 와. 내는 레 나사야 세 쪽인 건 대통계 지금 로주 된 거는 용거는 로주 맞아 용게서 말이야. 강이 되니까 얘네 이다 저러 되는 손도나 야보 다다는 게 거자 깨져 대시야 돼. 뒤를 봐 뒤고 이 갈선 강아 영한다 진 용어 강아 당들 강아 센살 유전 야쇼 때래 센데야 말에 강한데 제 강아 어딘지 되네 가까이 표가 말이다 다 선생님이 도나다 지 당당한 대신 봐 다든지 예제 대중은 저로서 제 뭐처럼 거지지 때인데 레션도 당이 되라고 하던데
So having again specifically outlined how the meditation practice works as a way to bring about a more settled, more calm state of mind, then as of course that we may engage in that practice in a more formal way, going back again to the problems that we face in our everyday life situations. Again, I feel like that it is important to emphasize that whenever we face problems or difficulties, if we have the right attitude, then we will not become overwhelmed with those problems and difficulties. And this is really an important point to keep in mind as a way to as a way to, how should we say, assist, as a way to feel, not to feel too discouraged, and particularly when problems arise, when problems or challenges arise, particularly when we are engaging in something which is worthwhile, when we put some effort and getting in something worthwhile, yes, it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be challenges and problems. But as the Dalai Lama has emphasized in his advice and teachings, that to willingly accept certain problems and difficulties, knowing that it is for good purpose, can actually help one to feel more encouraged. It will not. Far from being completely overwhelmed by the problems, one will be able to willingly take upon these challenges. And so when that happens, then the moment one begins to accept what is otherwise considered as a problem or a challenge, the moment we begin to accept it, it does not become a problem anymore. Actually, our mind, our ability to think straight and to work out the solution will become even better. We will have better equipped our intelligence or mind, or what we call the wisdom, will be able to function better. So thus the main point here is if we, as soon as we experience some difficulty and challenging problems, if we allow our mind to be completely overwhelmed and we kind of like sulk and think like, this is so difficult, then that in itself can become a habit and a habituation, where then if the habituation reaches a certain point, then yes, seemingly every problem and difficulty may appear to be so overwhelming and so difficult that one cannot face it at all. So that then is an unfortunate state to be in. So therefore it is besides the meditation, how the meditation practice can help us to become more, how should we say, to maintain more integrity and strength within ourselves. Even on a secular level, there's many people who nowadays have acknowledged that although there might be physical challenges like an illness and so forth, if one, by maintaining a right attitude, by maintaining the positive attitude, one can endure those physical challenges and weaknesses, and does not actually cause the mind to become weighed down and unhappy and completely overwhelmed. So this is something that we do see now in examples of people who have great physical challenges, but yet their mind is quite strong. So this, of course, does not come about just spontaneously, naturally. It does require some effort in adopting a positive way of thinking, a positive attitude. So this is something good to acknowledge.
Kanga Tig, Lojusa, Sani, Negum, Kanga Ton the Malena, then Kanga Tig, Lojusa, never Chamboshi do it. Taking any that thing is Tabashin, Tonga, Union Chamboyard. Genea, Union Chamboyard. Kanga Ton the Len, Genezo Motoa, Tison, Man Union Sierra, Genea, that is.
So, again, one cannot emphasize enough the fact that whatever activity one engages in, particularly like in a worthwhile activity one engages in, is bound to have some challenges and difficulties. Yet, if one were to adopt again the right attitude by taking upon these challenges, willingly accepting them, it will not overwhelm oneself. And so, yes, whatever, as mentioned earlier, whatever activity, such as for those who are engaged in studies, particularly here, some studies involve a lot of strenuous, how should we say, strenuous study, and it's not easy, and it's very difficult and very challenging at times. But if one were to, easily give up one's pursuit of one's studies by thinking, oh, this is too difficult, and one becomes too overwhelmed too easily, then one is losing this great opportunity for the future. Whereas those who withstand and go along with these challenges and accept them and pursue, become, how should we say, resilient and persistent in their studies, then later the results for their life will be much better. There's many accounts of those who persisted and came through with their finishing their studies and then getting, securing good jobs and so forth. So this is something which really, even on a practical worldly level, we can see has a great benefits. So these are really points to keep in mind.
새 강아도 써서 나도 노도 봐 제자지 되네 강아쟁은 노도 마셔는 새 강아 마셔는 강아정은 노도 마셔는 가을 배우면 되었으나 일단 손을 뒤도이나 다 강아정에서 고자 강아정은 노도 마셔서 다 내가 들어가라 되네 새해보 새사보 용아 다 들이 다 새라 강아면 새사보 새야보 다 지금 리긴 차들 쉬우지 팽개지 되는 대화지가 안 되다 아까 당하는 것에 대한 능력인데.
So that's now leading that back again to particular problems that we face on the mind or the psychological level, we can say. Those psychological challenges and difficulties are cause none other than really an overly active, overly discursive, what we call the disturbing conceptual state of mind, which is an overly, active state of thinking, thinking mind, which a lot of thoughts, obsessed with a lot of different thoughts. So when one is obsessed with so many different thoughts and or excessive thinking, then that can cause the turmoil and mental turmoil. So the means to subside that is by adopting none other than a mental solution, which is to apply means and methods to subside this overly conceptual state of mind, thinking mind. And so thus then the meditation practice thus is a most effective practice to help to subside an overly thinking mind. So then thus with that understanding, then it will serve a purpose. When one understands the purpose of the meditation, then it will serve a great purpose.
새들 마대차를 정하다 나 자청샤디 니 찌라코 니 찐들라코 내 손에 다 뒤에는 소소나다 새 말은 들으셔 다 대원은 깨지 써요 못어서네 되지 sonno지 땅네 되네 다다 미바데 당도 윤중어래 세 자자자 또 서로연시 당네 되네 윤중거라제 제메다 까마카시 된다시 되나 야 보여 진짜.
So thus we can now apply the meditation practice in our session now. So prior to engaging in the actual meditation practice, it is worthwhile to really make a commitment to oneself that once one has acknowledged that the disturbing, what we call the disturbing conceptions, conceptual thoughts in our mind, is the real culprit that disturbs our mind, and then within the disturbing conceptual thoughts that we may have, there might be specific ones we would acknowledge, we would be able to notice that it is, sort of like that causes one distress. Certain thoughts or certain ideas which that pop up in our mind that immediately causes us distress. There might be particular ones that we can notice. So here, the commitment we make is, as the great master Shantideva had mentioned, to making this resolution within ourselves that I will not allow my mind to follow these conceptual thoughts, the disturbing conceptual thoughts. I'll not allow my mind to follow it, even for a second. So with that commitment in one's heart, then when we engage in the meditation practice, we'll be much more alert. Our mind would be much more, fresher and alert to actually maintain a focus on the actual chosen object that we apply here in our meditation practice. So the chosen object, as we do regularly, can be our own breath. So based on our natural breathing, we bring our full attention and focus, making that commitment that I will not allow my mind to follow other discursive, conceptual thoughts that arise in my mind. They may pop up, but I'm not going to follow them. So making that resolution, that we bring then our attention and focus just to be on the breath itself. So thus, in that way, for the next few minutes, we can focus on our breath. So that be sufficient for now, for the meditation. So if there's any particular questions someone had in mind, I'm happy to hear. So the question is, what is that appealing internal object that one should be focusing on? Is that okay? Because gengi soyala, anzo semdi pa gayil tani da chi ngobodan chi da duyan la sobe ngobodun zela pa chicks pa sam pa tang shawaina di ani chi gi ngobodun zo pa da jigi yido wa da wo toni. Ko yido number chanin dila panganzo sem pa tango res namgyo ta digi gengi sunyala dinji sons chigi yido wa ngobo dindala mingne ani sem pa geng ta di chilol ta duksin chago res no re no re di dunongama dila dinji sons chigi ngobo yido wa jila mingne 아니 셈파 땅고레스 디 찹라
또 맞아 된 태에 될라
나
그냥 태고야 요거 만든 태고 말어 왔어요 대셔 샤라 얘도 뭐하지는 만든 대셔 운대야 근데 샤라 얘도 뭐하지는 만든 요거 뭐야 대세 자이도 답은 맞아 되는데
아노 지산다디 디다냠도 데니니 낭기 셈딜라 이동와질라 미고레스 진이 송송스 낭기
너무 미발
낭기 미발라 이동와질라
이거도 뭐하세요 자체가 너무 미발라 저런 짐장이 되네 너무 미발라 이거 되네 너 얘도 와 그냥 가서 ngama chila 되게 잘 들라야 맞지야
나 가슴만 송거 가슴만 지 송송스
아마 얘도 와 맞아 저 쇼마 이제 얘도 와 등한테 얘도 와 동거야 말이 생기 되나 야 아부마 과 제연도 와이나 얘네 쇼마도 이제서 세서버 얘네 얘도 와 쇼지 나한테 도와 셔즈 저거 라냐뭐 대연도 와 도와 너고 쇼마 이제 나한테 요건 동거야 말이
So, what to reiterate what I mentioned specifically last time is that about whenever you 2 or 3 weeks ago was how we are so used to looking at external appealing objects, which are distracting objects, and yet we fail to notice the appealing internal objects, the appealing objects within oneself, which are specifically like love and compassion. And so, while failing to notice that we have something appealing within ourselves, which is love and compassion, we don't focus on that, yet we does not appear to us being as appealing, and we keep looking outside and get distracted with external objects. So that's what I mentioned specifically last time. So that's then, I suppose, will answer your question.
Rejan Jumbosin, the Achemayon, and the Lord Padu. Then it has a word. Then Lord Juni, and Yamo you will attend Chapa and Yamo, then don't watch in there. That is still there, yet the Kansas, the tongue is initiation, the Kasa Korota, tongue in a Karisa.
So thus, to explain further on the points I made earlier, is that when we follow our sensual, when we allow our when we follow the objects that appear to our sensual mind, such as appealing forms and shapes, colors and shapes, then our mind then that induces an attachment or desire to that object which appears to be appealing. Then likewise, in relation to our auditory sensual sense factor, we go after appealing sounds which sound like nice and appealing, and then by being attracted to that, our minds then that it causes then desire to rise towards those pleasant sounds. Likewise, just pleasant smells, pleasant taste, pleasant tactile objects, tactile feelings. So this then, when our mind becomes completely obsessed with these external appealing objects, it then causes attachment to arise, and then causes thus the mind to become agitated with attachment or desire towards these objects. And then when an unappealing external object appears to the mind, then it causes what we call aversion to arise. So this is how our mind then experiences, by experiencing attachments and aversions, it causes so much turmoil in the mind. So contrast to that, if we were to focus inwardly and notice that there are appealing objects within oneself, such as love and compassion, and if we were to focus on that and actually help to develop the love and compassion further, then that can cause so much joy and happiness in one's mind, in contrast to that. So these are the points that I was mentioning last time.
새 자이 돈, 새 나무마저 저러 파진러나? 러? 빼나 청아였나? 롱이 소자 줘야 이제도 줘도 파진 이제다 제니더니 대 요데 저들 잡아지 대 잡만데 루바고노 얘기도 내가 안 녀이리야 가대 철아일라 떠나요 새다 다 전리근 대차 영예도 요모티 온데 마도나 대 잡아내면은 내세대 요섬면서 완전 들리지는 못해봐 제거야 대도 대진 완전 못해 저거 제거 파바는 완전 정이 따바셔다 로춘 가자라 새가 쏘아는 제 제나 가로지 설로지 제지와 로앙에네 이제지 나 딩거니 설로로니지 어제 대아진 소지 알세 대아진 소지요 알세라 대아진 소지요 알세 대들 들리가 살살 딩거니 못해지 찌그래라 너 던지 자자 서발레그래라 다 설로로니 다 뒤고가 자서 너 생 들어가는 손은 돼 다들 뭐들 침버지 때문에 용도와 사전 퇴직 계속 가려야 날 세만 못해야지 너지 다 만도 녀서 반통도 와다 이랬더니 제가 다 인선 저러서 내가 신나는 대야 보여야 돼
So so thus to expand a bit further on that, how focusing, if one were to allow one's mind to be completely immersed into, objects, appealing objects such as objects of attachment, then to give yet other illustrations of how that can cause so much turmoil, so much angst, and how should we say, so much sort of complications is, for example, if there's in a committed relationship such as a husband, if the husband then starts to notice that there are other attractive women, and the mind starts to follow that, and then actually if it goes further with the attachment, takes it further to actually starting to have a relationship with someone else, then we don't need to mention the cause, that how much sort of like complications and difficulties that can cause in that relationship with your committed partner, and so thus these are one particular example of how, if the mind had been trained not to be completely consumed or completely overwhelmed by attachment, then although when seeing other attractive individuals, that attachment may still arise, but yet because of one's training, one will not completely follow through with attachments, so that therefore then the complications, difficulties will be minimized, the problems will be definitely minimized. So this is yet one example of how, with the training of our mind, when we although desire does arise or attachment arise, if we can, with some training, we're able to contain ourselves where it doesn't completely overwhelm, completely override our mind, and then impair our judgments. So that is the main point. So particularly, also another point that I've mentioned in the past is that when in your youth, and especially when you're young, you have a certain you have ability to go out and enjoy yourself, and in fact, by going out and enjoying yourself, you do get a certain amount of enjoyment, and a certain level of satisfaction and enjoyment. However, if one completely allows oneself to be completely immersed in that, then when one's life becomes a continuous seeking of pleasures and enjoyments in one's youth, then now what seems to be apparent is that later, when in the later years, when someone reaches in the years of 80s, or in this early 80s or 70s or 80s, then the mind is, because of the habituation of a life being spent in enjoyments and pleasure, seeking pleasures, the mind still seeks that. The mind is still going after, seeks those pleasures and enjoyments. Yet physically, one is not able to pursue them anymore. So then at that stage, it seems to cause so much agony, so much difficulty for that individual in their mind. So these are certain points that are worth to take notice. So such an individual in their in the ripe age, later years, in the 80s or 70s, late 70s or 80s, may be an individual who is not deprived of the essential conditions for their care, for their needs, such as having sufficient food and clothing and even a nice house. But when they're staying at home by themselves, they're totally unhappy. They're completely unhappy, and their mind is always in turmoil. So thus, even with the external good conditions, the mind is in turmoil. So this seems to be a situation that comes about if one had not taken precautions of containing one's mind in one's early stages. So therefore, a means to help the mind to be contained and to be more controlled is the practice of meditation. So this is the point
ra chi se dera ma shenpa chi sera ha kong ma re ngene shengu ma re ngene shengu duwa chi so so go ja se zombo zo di ngene na ge re do tende shu chi peng de se chi pe se na ge re ha kong de se ge mo bo chi de lang da ba ji re se de ma de ze ge chi har za ta phen so na ma so wa de ta son tende zo na ya pon de wa de ta son and it's on a goja, also the truth, Chuban, the truth, so Chuban, getting it about session, but then and that. It's about lime, session, but the loss, running chumboch, want you chumbo shubaji out. So says the one, so and a robot shubaji, Regent. Is that? Garden run also says on boss, says she was the young in Rotten, Yashu tell Nitawala. Then Shala Tata Tez Senyamo on the Matoa, game about a country color, Kalachana, and younger wife, Anders, no can't do Sanya.
So thus there are those who mention, particularly elderlies who have now confided in saying that the meditation practice they find like really helpful, really beneficial in their life, so the effectiveness and the value of the meditation seems to be more readily accepted and understood by especially those in the later ages, elderly, the elderly. And some have actually confessed to me that, I wish I had known about this technique earlier in my life. I only started understanding about meditation or came in contact with meditation when I was about 65, and that seems to have been too late for me. So indeed, the reason why they see particular value of the meditation practice is that age is because they've had a significant experience of immersing themselves in enjoyments and pleasures, and then they have now come to a point where they realize that all of that had been quite futile, that actually really the main source of gaining some mental tranquility and happiness is through this meditation practice. So that is what they experience. So therefore, thus having said that, it is also a fact that in your youth, in your younger years, it is hard to really recognize and understand the real value of meditation. One may assume the values of meditation and see some benefit from it, but the actual real benefit might be yet to be really understood and experienced. And so that, so however it is good in the younger ages to really try to learn, to try to see as from examples of the elderly and what they say as being, what they express through the experience as being something value as well. And so particularly those who have befallen certain illnesses and sicknesses have really commented of how the meditation practice has now become the really valuable and a great aid for them, a great solace for their mind. And so there are some individuals who have been taken illness confide again, saying that they didn't really see much value when everything was well, when they were healthy and everything was good, but and having having to experience this ill health, they say that now it's become really apparent that the real solace for one's mind is the meditation practice that they have attempted to engage in previously, as coming to a real good aid. So thus, as I emphasize regularly, one's best friend is really one's happy mind, and a happy mind, and a positive state of mind. The positive mind and a happy mind is really one's best companions and best friends that can help us at all times, at any times, and as a way to.
Some death. Ngene says on the last time, Mr. Timareno. Got quite famous. Mazing in was it. Ngene says Zumbo, say Yada, says Zumbo, says Chibo, Jella Yada Sheba, Jella Pento Sheba. Taking any Museno, Nimbonas, tender anyway, son of Tentona, Yapuya Charaka. Guardian says about the young Roger Martian, Drumada, Sosonata, says about large mother Sosonat in Jena, then Yapoya at yes,
so thus the emphasis here is to recognize that a positive mind, which encompasses, a kind mind and a happy mind, these are really the most valuable assets that we can ever have. So thus I emphasize regularly, that one must make every attempt not to lose one's happy state of mind, not for one's happy mind to decline, because once it declines, once one loses the happy state of mind, one can reach a point where it's very hard to restore that again, restore the positive qualities and the positiveness in one's mind. Yeah. So thus putting emphasis, how should we say, acknowledging that, and putting every effort to have a happy mind is something, and the way to achieve that is through focusing on virtuous objects, to have a virtuous mind. So that is then one needs to understand that connection, that the virtuous, adopting a virtuous mind, acquainting oneself and focusing on virtuous objects is something that how we attain the happy mind. So there are particular in saying that one needs to maintain a positive state of mind. That is in contrast to the negative state of minds, such as anger, jealousy, and so forth. So as I've shared in the past, in my early days, my youth, when I was still in training in my mind, combating with the negative states of mind of anger and so forth, although I can now safely say that it's been many years where I have not really been affected by anger or minds of jealousy for a strong, intense anger or jealousy.
Strong jealousy. I have anger, not strong.
So when I had to deal with these intense minds of anger or jealousy and so forth arise, then, as I've shared in the past, as a way to protect myself, I have a dialogue with myself and apply cautionary measures to myself, saying, "Oh, be careful! Anger is arising here." So, and then I, call my own name and say that you must be careful here, as if you give in to anger, it will cause you only distress. It will cause you make life much more miserable, much more worse for you. So thus, and then when jealousy is intense, minds of jealousy arise. Likewise, I'll caution myself, saying, "Be careful."
편도 전부야 나 대리 동아 야보야 이게네야 저런 인서도 편도 링거래 근로 사이 코절로 봐다 내는 다 근로 제일 많이 온다 세칼도 손을 진권서는 다 될 손은 근로 사이 코절로 손은 말 근데 하든가 말을 도와주지 라인 봐 근로 코절 지지 손도나 대 야보셔라 대도 되지래
So this is a tactic which involves looking at the anger itself that arises in your mind rather than focusing on the object that one perceives as the how should we say, there's a particular word in English that that someone that provokes oneself, the provoker, rather what? Not, I think provoke someone. We talk about people provoking anger. So rather than focusing on the object that we consider as being provoking the anger provoking one's anger, looking at the anger itself, and trying to understand the nature of anger, and particularly the disadvantages of anger, the faults of anger, and so in this way, as I've also shared just also in the last few sessions, maybe last session or the one before that, that observing and thus investigating the negative state of mind itself, whether we call it negative emotion or afflictive state of mind, that observing it, that itself can then be really helpful to appease one's mind, so that one does not be completely consumed. So this these are actually very good in, there's very significant sort of points here as a good instruction. If you can remember that, it can be helpful. So it can help to the extent it can help to the extent of how should we say, subsiding that intense moment of intense moments of emotion can help to subside that, So although it may not work on helping to completely uproot sort of the negative state of mind, it can definitely help to subside an intense moment of these negative emotions. So even momentarily helping to overcome intense negative state of mind, thus then one reaps a great benefit from that. So this is thus as I said earlier, a very good method to work on one's your mind. So before we conclude the session for the evening, let us again spend a few minutes in meditation, this time focusing on the sound of the mantra to be recited, which is the name of Buddha Shakyamuni. And so while the name is being, Buddha Shakyamuni's name is being recited, we try to maintain just a focus on the sound itself, and when the recitation subsides, then just trying to maintain that inner sort of focus and maintain that for just a few moments, then that itself would be a good meditation.
Jaya Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha Jaya Cha Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha Jaya
So thank you, that'd be
Shanda